Hello. Today's tutorial is on a subject so exciting and so game-changing and so close to my heart. So this is quite a personal video as well, towards the end particularly, and so yeah, I'm excited for that. And the topic is planets out of bounds, with a particular focus on the moon out of bounds as being the particularly important and critical planet if it's out of bounds in your chart. So for the rest of the video, you will see, first I'll give you, basically, if you don't have planets out of bounds, this is not a video for you, I suppose, unless you are studying astrology or something, or you have someone you love or care for, they have. So first I'm going to show you how you can find out whether you have any planets out of bounds or not. And then if you do, I explain a little bit about them in principle, and then I give you 3 tips on how to work with your planets out of bounds, how to understand and deepen your understanding and relationship with them, and just understand them, I suppose. And then at the end, I share some examples, and then at the end I talk about the moon out of bounds, and that one is purely from my personal experience, because I don't really use this in my readings. I might consider using it in the future, but I have never used out of bounds. I could if you request it from me. So I don't know really if my clients have had them or not. So, but it's so everything I shared at the end is based on my own experience, and I have moon that's like out, like it's out there beyond, almost there at the end of outboundness. And there are about 5 and so degrees that you can be out of bounds, and I'm almost at the end of that. My moon is rather. So I'm a good example of that. And actually, I just realized, so I'm gonna bring it in here. There was a piece that I promised I was gonna touch on, but because I record these videos in various bits and bobs, I'm still, like I say, learning this technology is driving me nuts. But that's neither here nor there. So. And it will be a video by David Cochrane, sorry, is an astrologer, so I'll have a link to his video where he talks in more detail about it. But there are ways you can have planets out of bounds, clear, that's it, they're out of bounds, and there is a number for that. And then you can have them near out of bounds, which is just around that number. And I speak of those numbers in the next section of the video, coming after this. And then there is just before. So David Cochrane in his video talks lovely about that, so I'm not going to spend much time, but essentially, if you're on that border, it's like you have the feet in both worlds. So you can bring all that stuff that's coming from a different realm, or the outsideness somewhere else there, where no one has been before. So it's like new, it's beyond, it's pushing the boundary, right, of anything, knowledge, experience, insight, So you have a foot in there, that you can see it, rather, maybe you don't even have a foot in it, but you can see it because you're on that boundary. But you're also in the world that you're part of very much, because you're not out of bound, you're just on the border or near enough. So you very much know how to speak to those people, well, to people basically, most people who are not out of bounds, to speak to them about the stuff from the out of boundness. Yeah, see what I mean? So it's like, so just think of it like that. The closer you are to the out of bound border, the more you're able to translate the stuff from that realm into this normality, into this world, let's say. And the further away you are, the less able or even concerned you are to actually bring whatever you're finding over there into this world, unless you have another kind of couple of mitigating factors, which I talk about, that you can use, mediating mediating moments in your chart that will help you to bring all that goodness from the out of boundness into the normal world. And sorry for using the word normal, can't think of a better one quickly. So you'll have, and I'll touch on that, so sorry I didn't do that later. Okay, so hope you enjoyed the video, and yeah, I'll be back next week. And do let me know if you have what out of bound planets you have. I would love to know. This is really like one of those quirky things in astrology that are just like exploded my world in a good way and made me see things that I didn't before and all the rest, all the great stuff like that. So yeah, I shall see you next week again. Enjoy the video, enjoy the tutorial. So let me show you how you can find out for yourself whether you have planet or planets out of bounds. So one method for any planet, and the best method really, is to go to astro.com, create your own chart, and I'll link in the video how to do that if you don't know already. And once you do that, you're probably on that screen anyway, but if you're creating it, but if you already created, you go into your account and go to natal chart ascendant from free horoscopes, and then you get your chart. So I'm using my chart just to show you. So you get a chart, but what you want is this section here. You have two PDFs and you want PDF additional tables. So you click on that and you get straight away, you get this like a tabled version of your chart. So you have planets on one side, sun, moon, etc. Then these are the degrees that we use traditionally, typically in astrology, to determine aspects and what we work with basically. And then house and the rest. But what you want is this section here, this column here called declination. And what you want, you're looking for anything 23, 28, so 23 degrees with a little circle, and then 28 is the next lot of numbers with a little like a apostrophe or something. So that's minutes. So you want 23 degrees, 28 minutes or more. That means your planet, that planet is out of bounds. So as you can see, I have 28 degrees, 9 minutes is my moon. And so that's quite out there. Way out there. The maximum moon can go is 28 minutes 28 degrees 50 minutes. So mine is 9 minutes. So and so that's a moon. You go across and check. And then I also have Mercury out of bounds, so 23:56. My Mars is near enough, so there is and I'll talk about that later. There is this thing where if it's near anything on 23, consider it out of bounds. But there are benefits to that, and I'll talk about it later, like I say. And then 22 potentially, but I'm not there yet myself to kind of take it as such. But I know some astrologers use that too, 22 to be, yeah, I'll talk about that a bit later, like I say. So you want 23, 28 is definitely out of bounds. Anything more, absolutely out of bounds. The further and the more out of bounds it is. Anything below, but still 23 is near out of bounds, and that's still pretty much out of boundy. And then the next thing you want to look at is zeros, where you have zeros. Now, this is the opposite of out of bounds, but it's an important, and I'll be referring to it later, so make sure you know what that is, if you have any planets on zero. So zero, for me, is Uranus, for instance. And then my nodes are also zero, but I haven't gone down that route yet. I don't know much about that. Haven't got much to say about nodes being either side, really. So, okay, so that's how you find out how to do planets. So this is, you'll see all of your planets, basically. You can even have asteroids here, it will show. But now I'm going to show you how to calculate your moon. So this is another way to do it, but it's only for the moon. And if you prefer that, I'll show you how to do it. So this is how, I'll have a link for this. I'll call it Moon Calculator or Moon Out of Bounds Calculator. So you'll go into this page and you have this field here to enter certain format, to enter your dates, and you click calculate, and then you scroll all the way down. And basically you want the last field, which has declination next to it. And again, it will say plus or minus means north or south declination. Don't worry about that. So that really, don't worry about that as long as the numbers are. So you want 23, 28 or more to be sure that your moon is out of bounds. And the further away it is, the more out of bounds it is, or the bigger number it is. So you can see slightly there is like 13 minutes here apparently, as opposed to 9 minutes. So I don't know, because the other one is more precise because it has my place of birth, and so I would go by the other one, but yeah. Okay, so this is how you figure out what you have out of bounds. And then if you can either go off and, if you don't have anything, thanks for stopping by. But if you have, particularly if you have moon, stick around, because I'll be talking in quite depth and great from my own personal experience, as I'm an example of an extreme. I'll have some, good stuff for you maybe to consider and work with. If you have moon out of bounds, stick around. So what is a planet out of bounds? It's essentially a planet that has gone beyond the sun. Now, this piece is too astronomical for me, so I'll just keep it very simple and not too astronomical in terms of my language. If you want to understand astronomy of that, I don't even have particular videos. Just Google planet out of bounds astronomy, and there's plenty. So, but in terms of astrology, in terms of this tutorial, in terms of figuring out your natal planets out of bounds, what you just want to think about and understand is that there is Sun can only be 23 degrees and 27 minutes furthest away from the Earth, or rather Earth can be, or whatever. So when the planet is found beyond that point, that's when the planet is considered out of bounds. But the reason I even brought this astronomy piece, that it's actually making me very nervous, because I really don't fully understand the whole astronomy, but that's, like I say, not my thing anyway. And you can do astrology without knowing astronomy. But it obviously does add some layers and depth to it that, can be helpful. And so this much I love, and I'm bringing it here, is that there is Sun and Earth here at play, are deciding what's out of bounds and what's inside those bounds. And if you think of Sun, archetypally it's a father figure, and Earth, the Gaia, is a mother figure, archetypally speaking. So it's almost like this is our home. And this is literally our home, like Earth is our home, as in 3D home as we know it. And without the Sun, the Earth would look nothing like it does, and we probably wouldn't be here. Life wouldn't exist without the Sun. Obviously, life needs a few more other things, but still, Sun is a big part of it, isn't it? So what determines the planet being out of bounds is when it's outside this field. And I'll show you, there is David Cochrane video, I'll link in below, where he actually gives you a visual. I have no software to do that, to show you, where you can kind of see when a planet is gone outside that field that is created between Earth, movement of Earth around the Sun, or whatever. And so any planet that's within that boundary is inbound, not out of bounds. And it's like being at home, still with your parents, parents not in a sense that you are childlike and you can't look after yourself, but just in a sense that you belong to this parent-like world, where you feel you have both parents who you can turn to for support, for advice, for help, or whatever. And so that's important to kind of have that picture in your mind when you think of your planet out of bounds. So whatever you have out of bounds, if you have anything, consider it outside of home, outside of what's home for most people. And this is the beauty. It's not the typical Cancer, Capricorn type of, let's move out to our parents' home, grow up an adult. It's not that. It's far deeper, or far more independent, in the sense that if you have a planet out of bounds, that planet and the functioning performance in your life, so let's say Venus, so that's anything to do with relationships, with values, with pleasure, never had a home where most people have home. And that's the beauty of planets out of bounds. It's like you really, you don't even have the sentimental attachment or melancholy or nostalgia or, what's the thing, fear of FOMO, right? Fear of missing out, that kids nowadays talk about. So yeah, there's none of that, because you don't know that was never yours anyway. What you then end up feeling is that, this kind of distance and being an outsider. It's the ultimate outsider, basically. The planet out of bounds is, in one word, it's the outsider, the archetype of outsider, right? So then it's depending on what planet it is, those functions that the planet performs. So if it's Mercury, it would be to do with your style of communication and style of thinking and style of learning that you do, just not like anyone else, basically. So there are only so many planets that can go out of bounds. And so they are Moon, the Moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Uranus, and Pluto. And you may have, probably not all of them. Or if you do, please let me know. I would love to know. I would love to meet someone who has all of them. I'm sure, I don't know. I don't know if it's possible to have all of them. Possibly, I don't know. But if you do, let me know. But otherwise, you can have one, you can have none, obviously, in which case, if you're still here, you might, check if anyone in your family or someone you care about has, so maybe you want to stick around. But for the rest of this video, I will be talking about how you can, I'll give you 3 tips on how to deepen your understanding of your planet out of bounds, and then I'll go into the Moon. I'll be talking about the Moon in particular, so the rest of the video will be about the Moon, because as Stephen Forrest, who's currently the authority, astrologically speaking, on this on this phenomena, if you like, of planets out of bounds, Moon out of bounds in particular. He's written about it, he's researched it, and he's got quite a lot to say about it. So a lot of this I'm sharing here is informed by him, but also by my own personal Moon out of bounds, which is super out of bounds. So for the rest of the video, I'll be talking about give you 3 tips on how to work with your other planets that you have, if they're not Moon, or even if they're Moon, how to work and understand them better, and then I'll talk about the Moon specifically. So if you have a Moon out of bounds, do stick around. So my 3 tips for how to understand your planet of bound better and how to work with it. So tip number 1, look where the ruler of your planet out of bound is. So let's say you have Moon out of bounds and is in Aries. So look where the ruler of your Moon is, which is Mars, because it's in Aries and Mars rules Aries, right? So look where your Mars is, which house, and if it's conjunct anything. Conjunctions are always the best starting point. First, kind of master that, and then you can go to oppositions and then squares. So, for example, what that helps you with, how that helps you, is that what you might find that where you have the planet out of bounds is where you will struggle more, in the sense that you will be this outcast, this outlier, or whatever the expression is, the rebel. Not the rebel, it's not an active thing, you just are different, you're just very different, or in that, so in terms of your emotional needs, if it's a Moon, or if it's a Venus in Aries, out of bounds, then would be your relationships. So wherever you have that, the house you have your Venus, your planet out of bounds, is where you might have more problems with the world around you. But where the ruler of the planet is kind of like your mediator, acts as a mediator. So if it's in 3rd house, let's say Mars, then you could do all your Venus out of bounds stuff in writing, because it's 3rd house, or speaking. So Mars might be better actually at this kind of speaking, or it could be even a politician or someone who argues, and that's like a philosopher or judge, or rather, I meant more like a lawyer, sorry. So basically, the ruler of your planet out of bounds and where it is shows you where you can bring your out of bound planet and do some good stuff with it, is the bottom line. Tip number 2. So any planet out of bound, or rather just out of boundness phenomenon, is very Aquarian and Uranian in nature, and you probably gathered that by now, because it's like it goes beyond what's kind of done before, what everyone else is doing. It's the ultimate, it's the weirdo, it's the one that stands outside. And the outsider, right? So that's certainly part of the Uranian archetype. And so, let's stick with the Venus in Aries. If you if your Venus in Aries is out of bounds, to understand her better, read up and research Venus in Aquarius and Venus conjunct Uranus. So then really, go to town with these two. And as I always advise, like, just always follow your own reactions, watch out, just listen to yourself, how you react to what you're reading. And if things are triggering you and you just, no, that's not me, that's not necessarily you, but there's something there you want to stop and look into. And the third tip is, I showed you in the video where I was demonstrating how to read from that PDF in your chart in astro.com, how to read and find out your out of bounds planets. And I said, pay attention to a zero declination. If you have any planet at zero declination, or one even, I think I heard someone say, possibly, but obviously if it's zero, even better. That's only relevant if you have planet out of bounds in this context. So it's my third tip. So wherever you have a zero, whatever planet is at zero declination in this column on this PDF, that's another mediator, another mitigating planet that you can use to bring, almost like make all that weirdness palatable. So in the previous tip number 1, when I said you use the house where the planet, the ruler of your planet out of bounds is, where to do your out of bounds stuff. You just do it, but you're still gonna be out of bounds. You're still gonna be way out there, and you still might encounter difficulties. But it's like you're channeling it really well in doing it that way. Here, with a zero planet, with the planet that's at zero declination from the PDF, you really can almost like you can change that message to the point almost of like political manipulation, of, in the sense, I don't mean to suggest any kind of wrongdoing or in a kind of negative connotations of manipulation, but you can manipulate, you can really make something out of that weirdness, let's call it weirdness, and make it, like I say, palatable, make it actually seem far less weird, but still send the message. Now the message will be diluted and it will not be as radical as you may feel, but it's like, if you want to make a gentle change, if you want to keep people on board, if you want to, have, it's also a way to connect with people. So your weirdness will be most acceptable when you do your planet that's at zero declination. And that's my third tip. And now I'm going to go talk about moon out of bounds. So unless you have moon out of bounds, thanks for watching. But if you have moon out of bounds, stick with me, because I have a few things to say there, and they're mostly based on my own experience, but also very much informed by Stephen Forrest. But yeah, so hopefully there will be some more goodies there for you too. Right. Oh, and I forgot to mention, I want to give you an example of this 0 degree declination, how important that planet is and how it really brings home the bacon. Is that the expression? An amazing example of that is Brene Brown. So I'll link her YouTube talk, that it's really beautifully kind of summarizes what I'm going to show you here. So basically she has 3 planets. She has Mercury, Venus and Mars out of bounds. She doesn't have moon, but she has Mercury, Venus and Mars. And she has Chiron at 0 degree declination. And she's, as she says, she's vulnerability TED, or she's the queen of vulnerability. She's the researcher famous. I actually haven't read any of her books. I'm very familiar with her work and through her TED Talks, but I bought them actually, but I haven't yet read them. Anyway, so she's famous for basically saying that vulnerability is the ultimate courage, and she brings those topics of shame as well, and guilt and blame. She talks about them. She's done a lot of research, mostly with women apparently, but also with men. And I think the link I showed you, I haven't down in the description, is actually mentioning the storyline. But anyway, my point is that she's vulnerability is Chiron, and she has dared to, as a Mercury out of bounds, dare to think and speak about these topics. Chiron's 0, the Chironian topics, the topics that make us squirm, the vulnerability, the shame, the guilt. And she I mean, it's a Venus in Venus out of bounds. Her Venus out of bounds is, you know, she's basically very much about the connection and relationships, and how you can put this into work to help your relationships. And then Mars out of bounds is possibly her actually having the courage to do all that. But essentially, she's doing her Chiron 0 declination, essentially, her work. So you don't, because in a way, the topics she talks about, I would imagine, I mean, maybe my moon out of bounds, but everything she talks about, it's like, it isn't in a way anything new. We all know it. It's just that she's talking about it. So that's her Mercury out of bounds. But also, like I say, she's talking about the Chiron topics of shame and vulnerability and that squirmy feeling of, you know, what if we get rejected and that kind of stuff. So she's an amazing example of that 0 degree declination planet. So important. Find out what it is in your chart if you have any planets out of bounds, and then figure out how you wanna, what is the theme, what are the functions of that planet that you wanna channel your out of boundness through and bring it to us, to make it more to make us understand. So it's almost like you're making the world understand the planet at 0 through your out of boundness. That's the kind of ultimate message. And so now let me say a few words about moon out of bounds. It's out of all the planets you can have out of bounds, moon is the most important one, in the sense that Stephen Forrest, who's the authority on this topic, is an astrologer, and I'll link his article down in the description, is the one who said this basically, and he's done research on his clients and noticed that when a person had moon out of bounds, it was the most dramatic of all other planets. If they had an out of bounds, it was the most dramatic. That one was expressed most dramatically in its peculiarity, in its outsiderness. It's out of all planets, it acts the most out of character, the moon does, when you have it out of bounds. So, which makes sense to me, because we associate moon with, or moon's function in our personality is how we nurture ourselves, how we feel safe, how we feel protected, how we feel comfortable, what makes us feel comfortable. So when those things are way out of whack for what's considered normal, then we will be perceived most dramatically. So those cozy little images you can imagine, like on Instagram, #winter, cozy winter, indoors or whatever, reading a book, coffee, something. I can just see them. I love them, by the way. But so moon out of bounds is that picture in the negative, like literally, like if you turn that beautiful picture into negative and try it, it just looks not pretty, not cozy. It certainly doesn't look cozy. It looks quite kind of scary and horror-like. So what I'm saying with this is that the reason the moon is most dramatically obvious and most dramatically expressed in its difference, in its oddness, is because it's our most precious. It's like a child, our inner child, sort of, that we all of a sudden see as this monster in someone else. So with my moon out of bounds, that's way out of bounds. I may, if you got closer to me, get to know me, you might feel that I'm just this like such a weird odd person, because the function of coziness and comfort, what's for me, is way out there than for most people if they're not out of bounds. So I think that's why, because of what moon represents, that we notice it, and it's most dramatic for that reason. Another thing I wanted to speak about is that with moon out of bounds there is this profound need for freedom, personal freedom and just freedom. But so the need part is the Cancer part, is in the moon part, but freedom then becomes defined by your sign. So I don't know, let's say you have moon in Aries, so your ideal freedom may be to be physically healthy and active, and or to be independent, never to be in a committed relationship or just relationship, always to be a pioneer, or only to start things and to know that you don't have to follow through. So that's definitely an idea of Aries for freedom, right? So look to your sign of your moon out of bounds to understand what makes you feel free. And you will have a profound need for that. So just, you may not need any coaxing. This is being that you were born with it. This is what you know, but you might be, hiding it from yourself as well, because it's way wacky and weird. And that's the beauty of moon out of bounds, or any other planet out of bounds, but is that there is not really a wound as such, because you're born that way. It's not like you knew something and then now you don't know. It's like something has been taken away from you. The kind of the toil, the kind of drudgery, or the work that's like painful, hard work, like, end up with sore muscles or something, is that you have to sort of maneuver yourself, or partly because this is just part of you, so not all of you is out of bounds, so you have these conflicting parts in you, where that some of them don't want your moon, so it's like you can be your own enemy, worst enemy if you like. And because those other parts want to be part of the group, want to be inbound, but your moon is so important. It's like, it's what makes you happy. It's what makes you happy. So if you have moon out of bounds, what makes you happy may well freak everyone else out. And that is important to get comfortable with that. And I'm still working on that myself. With that said, let me share something potentially dangerous for my reputation. But while we're at it, why not? And this is actually in line with how I want to make a case for not criminality, not an official criminality that I would ever do anything criminal to go to prison or just even do criminal stuff, because it doesn't sit with my morals, but the criminality that is often, you will see it everywhere written about, on moon out of bounds, like the negative expression of that, is that you will, it's having the empathy for evil, understanding why someone does evil acts. I mean, it's been all my life. I mean, I have so much in my chart that supports all this anyway, this kind of fascination with darkness, human darkness. And moon out of bounds is definitely one of them, particularly Capricorn. I mean, it's the devil card and yet I'm easily scared. I cannot watch horror. I mean, I love horror movies, but I cannot watch them. I always like hide behind pillows and stuff. So it's like, it's just, it's not like this is one highway you're on. It's like you have many interlacing ones. But the piece that I wanted to share is, there are a few, but let's say this one, for instance. Years ago, probably 15 years ago, I watched a documentary on Jeffrey Dahmer, and who's a serial killer, American serial killer, and a cannibal, I think. So he was caught. I think he's a Gemini. He was very chatty and charming. I remember that as well in the prison cell, and he was interviewed by various people, and that was the documentary. So they asked him why he was killing, and amongst other things, he said that basically he felt so dead inside that the only way to make him feel alive, he had to kill. That's the only time he felt alive. And I know exactly now, as I say this to you, I know the image of my house at the time where I was sitting, my partner was next to me, we were watching it, and I just went crying. I started crying. I knew exactly what he meant. That, not about the killing part, but the part that is like, chasing that feeling of aliveness, that without which there is no point of living. So if you ever experience depression, and the heavier you experience, the more you'll know what I'm talking about, is it's like you'll do anything. You want to do whatever it's going to get you out of that deadness. And that Saturn, it's like death. It's like physical heaviness and death. Literal in the sense of internal psychic death, sort of emotional death or whatever. Not physical so much, but it feels heavy, literally. So if you knew that, if you have experienced that, you will know, and this is the wisdom. So back to you, if you have moon out of bounds, please don't get scared. And I have your back. Really, I know how this is so important. So you don't shame yourself. That's my point. So you don't shame yourself for feeling this, for having deepest compassion for serial killers. There's another one, while I'm at it, might as well. Versace was a TV Netflix drama, and by the end of it, the character that I just couldn't stand, partly because he was not likable, but also this is what he was doing. He was a murderer, again, serial killer. By the end, I was just bawling my eyes out for him, because his humanity came through, and his profound just twistedness and just brokenness, and oh my God. Anyway, so that's the wisdom of moon out of bounds, that when they talk about criminality and all that stuff, it's really that you get it, and you can so quickly access the hearts of criminals, put it that way. So it'd be a great job to work in a prison, and to heal as well. And the last point on the evilness is that Osho, I remember, I don't know if you know who he is, he's a mystic, Indian mystic, who said that the ultimate sign of compassionate person, something along those lines, I'm butchering his quote, but is that empathy and to have empathy and compassion for evil. And because it just is. So the wisdom is to accept it, but to also have compassion because it's being committed by humans. I mean, I'm not going to go too much into this, but Sweden has prisons, and the Nordic countries have prisons that are more like, summer camps. And because they treat criminals with far more respect or rather dignity, really, dignity. So, okay, let me pause. And the last piece, which kind of links into what I just shared, is that what I've just shared about the criminality and criminals that are often, talked in the same breath when they talk about moon out of bounds, is the difference between antisocial and asocial. So antisocial, and I'll link a video that I have on my other channel, which is solely dedicated to my moon out of bounds, not intentionally, but it is essentially an expression of my moon out of bounds. So if you have moon out of bounds, you might want to go and visit what I'm doing there. So I spoke about this particular topic on antisocial and asocial. So antisocial is when you are against, so that's like an agitator, that's like someone who is literally going after to destroy something. So that is, to me, that's kind of far more dangerous than sitting on the outside happily observing, possibly we're not caring what's going on in the inside, right? So the difference is when you're asocial, but the society will have a far greater problem with the asocial, I think, than in antisocial, because you don't know what the society will feel threatened by occasional lookalikes, i.e. other humans that are so on the outside that they can see them, so that they are humans, they can see that they have human body, but they seem to be doing nothing, they're not actively being a threat, so that in itself is suspicious, and just like, call for a red alert, what's going to happen, or the imagination kicks in, the people start filling the gaps, like why is it not happening, why is the person just sitting there? But if someone's actively attacking you, it's like having an enemy in front of you, knowing how to fight it. So in a way, what I'm saying, asocial is moon out of bounds. It's actually a peaceful, calm moon that is just happy being left alone somewhere in that distance, in the darkness, or whatever you want to call it. And call to society is just leave them alone. They're not dangerous. The ones that are coming at you, maybe also not so dangerous, but at least they're coming at you and you can fight them, but leave those ones alone, because moon out of bounds is there willingly. He's actually made a choice to be there. That's the difference. That's the beauty of any planet out of bounds. It's did I say this? I've done many recordings, so I don't know. Did I say that there is no wounding with planets out of bounds, because they chose. It's a choice they made to be outside or to be so weird and wacky and odd, and they do it because they want to do it, not because people threw them out and then they out of some kind of rejection complex or whatever, acting out, right? No, any planet out of bounds is choosing to be an outsider. And on that note, hope you found this very helpful and enjoyable. I'll see you next week.